Hello, also from my side. First of all, let's... okay, this display is not working, but it's fine. Let's talk about Shopware-cli. No, it's working. Let's talk about Shopware-cli, but before we start about Shopware-cli, I would like to know from you, who of you knows Shopware-cli? Please raise your hand. That's a lot of people, but who of you uses it actively, to be honest? Okay, that's less. Let's work on that. So, what is Shopware-cli? First of all, it's of course a CLI, a command line application, so you can run it in the terminal and can automate stuff. Of course, it's not the bin console application you normally have in your Shopware project. It's a complete different application. It's Go-based. It's Shopware version independent, so you can use the same Shopware CLI version for any of your projects. And nowadays, it's also pre-installed by some hosters, so you can directly go on and use it. The main use cases of the Shopware CLI are the extension store tooling, which is also like why we created the CLI in the first place. We, as friends of Shopware, have a lot of plugins. I mean, like 30 plugins. And of course, we are all lazy. I mean, by that, we are efficient. We want to code and not manage. So the first idea was like, let's make it easier to upload plugins. That's why we have the extension store tooling. And then we hand it out to, let's make it even easier to build an extension zip. And the final stage was some days ago, let's build a complete product tooling to do everything at once. So we can use the same CLI for the store to build an extension or do something completely within a project. So let's take a look what we can do with the Shopware store. We have a lot of commands in the Shopware store section, like we can create a plugin, we can list the plugins we have in our Shopware store account, we can upload one, and so on. But the more important one here is we can upload one. So we want to focus on the uploading. To understand why we want to be more efficient, when you want to upload an extension, when you never did that, you have to go to account.shopware.com, switch the area, go to extension, find your extension, scroll down, click on version upload, of course. Then you have to fill out a lot of forms, and then upload it. We are all developers, we want to be efficient, so we can work more and not do like boring stuff. So the Shopware CLI way for that is, first of all, we have to, of course, authenticate in some way with the Shopware store. So we are using, like, in this case, a CI user, which I would always recommend. Please create a CI user. When you use a regular user and change your password, it's annoying to change it everywhere in all of your project. Create, please, the CI user. And then we log in and can use the Shopware CLI. Of course, you can use also environment variables. Nobody wants to log in the CLI with a login command and user interactive stuff. After that, we just have to say, like, Shopware CLI account produce upload. It's a little bit nested. It's the way how you do it in Go Cobra application. It's a little bit like the Symfony colon, which you use to separate. In Go, it's more nested. They love nesting. And in that way, it uploads the extension, creates a new binary, uploads the changelog associated in the zip, and then it's basically waiting for the code review. And when it's successfully, the program exits with a success code, it's fine. And when the code review set an error, it fails, and you can see it in your pipeline. We, as friends of Shopware, we use that since 2 years to release all of our plugins. It's pretty stable. Just works. We just tag a version, and then it uploads, and everyone is fine. We never look in the account, is it really there? It just works. I think other extension manufacturers also love that. But that's not the only part. We want to be more efficient. So what we can do also with the Shopware CLI is we can manage the complete store page. What I mean with that is we have the store page, and then there we have like the title, description, localization. There's so much. Highlights, tags. So we want to do that, manage also with the CLI. And there we have a handy command, like info pull at the end of this long nesting. And basically you just pass the plugin directory where your plugin or app is located, and then it pulls down a YAML configuration with all the store stuff. And then we have a YAML file, which all the configuration of the extension store, and we can manipulate the YAML as like we want to do it. We are also in the schema store, so you have autocomplete in any ID by JetBrains, Visual Studio, Z, everything new. You have autocompletion, you can do that how you want to do that. And after we change the stuff, you can push it to the store. I forgot to mention one cool stuff. For the description, you can also include files. You have this file prefix. This means it looks relative to that directory from description. It can be in HTML or Markdown, because we are developers, we write always Markdown for our README. Why not for the store? So we uploaded extension with a zip file. But how do we get the zip file? Of course, there's Shopware-cli for that. So under Shopware-cli extension, we have a lot of commands. We will not look into everything because it's too much. But we have stuff like admin watcher. It's an extremely Go-based admin watching. We can create a new extension. We can validate it, and so on, and build assets of the extension. But, of course, we just look at the zip command now. But you maybe think, like, zipping an extension is not so complicated. Everyone can do that. Right-click in the Finder, create archive. No. It's not so easy. We did adjustment in the administration, so we have to provide a precompiled administration asset. It's the same for the storefront. So what we do regularly is we create a Shopware project, copy our extension inside, run build administration sh, and then we can zip it. And then the next funny stuff starts with, like, you forgot to delete the node modules folder in your plugin folder, and the store says you have to be under 5 megabytes. And we all know how big node modules is. And also like composer dependencies, but this is not relevant since 6.5 anymore, but when you have plugins before, it automatically installs the right composer dependencies in the vendor folder for you. But what we can do with Shopware-cli is we can just say Shopware-cli extension zip, the folder name, and in this case, we have also --release, which says, please do the release mode, which removes kind of the app secret when you have an app. So it's automatically removed. We are lazy, we forgot that. It happens really a lot that people upload the app without removing the app secret. And also trigger the generation of changelogs. And of course, we delete unnecessary files like GitHub Actions, tests. Nobody cares that on production. And of course, we build assets. And of course, this is completely configurable because every extension is different. So let's take a look at the changelog part. So first of all, we say changelog enable true. This says, Shopware-cli, please generate the changelog from the git commit history. We want to be more efficient. Nobody wants to write changelogs. In this, I took here a case from the Shopware, from one Shopware plugin. So we have a pattern, which is in regex for next. We use that Shopware next for our Shopware 6 project. So when the commit message starts with next, it's whitelisted, we can use it. But then the cool stuff starts. We can create variables dynamically. The name ticket is not fixed. So we can create a regex with a group, and the first matching group will be used for the variable. In this case, we extract the next ticket number from the commit message. And below, we have a template where we iterate over all commits, which are through our pattern. And we can build with Markdown our changelog, which is directly linking to the official Shopware changelog with the ticket number. Isn't that cool? It saves so much time, at least for me. The next cool stuff is we have ES build here also enabled. I will come on the next slide to that. ES build is a Go-based bundler, similar to Webpack, but it's a lot faster. With a lot, I mean, in this case, when we just use ES build, we are 7 times faster than the normal building. This is because we don't have to clone Shopware, because to build assets, we have to be in Shopware, and the plugin must be in the Shopware project. With ES build, we can just go straight and build it. There are, of course, problems, and so as we don't have the Shopware source code base, you cannot import something from the Shopware source code base, but mostly you don't need it. So people importing, like in the storefront, like the HTTP client, it's not necessary, guys. We have fetch in the browser, just use fetch. And this happens with a lot of other dependencies. When you use fewer dependencies of Shopware.js code, your plugin is also more stable. So it will work a lot more across more Shopware versions. So I would highly recommend creating ES build in an isolated way without any Shopware source code around. And of course, it's faster, and I like to have faster pipelines. And in my opinion, 3 seconds is still too long. I need to optimize that. So let's take a look on the next step, validate. Anyone hates that. You have a plugin zip, upload it, and then the store review fails. Oh my God. I want to have it locally. Extension zip is exactly that. You can use extension zip, then the zip file, and then it does kind of the same things what the Shopware store does, but locally, without have to interact with the Shopware store. Isn't that great? Just locally, without anyone else in your pipeline doing something. So it basically checks like, is there changelog there? We do PHP syntax linting. This is pretty exotic and also really proud of that. It's based on WebAssembly, so you don't need to have the PHP version installed locally, or PHP anyway. It just uses WebAssembly and downloads the lowest PHP version for your extension and uses that syntax linting. And also, we checked the snippets, which is also, which you could also use PHP Uni for that. It checks that the snippets are always defined in any language and with the same amount, and the store upload stuff. The description needs to be 150 characters, and so on. And the next stuff, when we come from extension, so we had store, then we come to extension, and project. And project is just a lot of more extensions, not just ours. And here we have a lot of stuff, because we want to have everything in one tool, so you don't have to interact with other stuff. So what's directly included is admin build, storefront build, like the regular bin commands, but unified in one way. You can just use Shopware-cli. It's regardless which Shopware version you have flags, not flags, previous stuff. You can use one regular command to build the administration. It works everywhere. When not, please correct the issue. I will fix that. The same for the storefront admin watcher. We can create a MySQL dump and a lot of other stuff, like config. We can also manage the complete config of the store, so you can pull the mail templates to a local YAML file and push it also to other stores and a lot of stuff. I will come later with a link tree where there are guides for that. But let's focus on this building a Shopware project, because I think most projects will need that. So what we have is, we have our source code, like Git base, our GitHub repository, GitLab, and so on. And we want to be there to have a running online shop. And exactly for that use case, we have Shopware-cli project CI. It's a little bit magic, but you can run that after you cloned your project, and it installs all composer dependencies, You can add also like an environment variable. It configures automatically the shopware packages access. It builds all assets when necessary, so we can skip them when they're already built. So it's everything much faster. We clean up a lot of files, so it's 70 megabytes smaller than usual deployments, which is pretty nice for Docker images. When it's smaller, it gets faster pulled and so on. And we warm up also the shopware cache. So when you use containers and spawn a new container, the cache is a little bit warm, and the first request doesn't take so long. So the thing here now is, we built the complete project with Shopware-cli, project CLI. But we just built the project. How do we get it to the live server? This is kind of what you have to do, because you cannot say, yeah, you have to use deployer, containers, and so on. We want to be flexible. So we want to come from our CI, which in this stands like continuous integration, to the live server. As an example would be here like containerizing. Like we build the CI artifact in a container and then go to the live server. And here comes the new stuff which exists since 2 weeks and has nothing to do with Shopware-cli really, but it matches perfectly. We have a new CLI helper. It's named development helper. It's a composer package, which is under the Shopware name. And what it basically does is it installs or updates Shopware. So we check, is Shopware installed? When not, we install it. And do we have extensions? We install the extensions or update them. And this is pretty nice, because you have always some kind of scripts in your deployments, like installing plugins, whatever, but we want to standardize that at Shopware. And this is kind of what we want to do there. This is right now pretty experimental. I want to really hear your feedback on that, because we want to, of course, develop that with your opinions on that. And as every project is different, there's a YAML file. We were here a little bit crazy. What you first can do is you can define hooks, because you have commands you want to run. So what you can do is we have a general pre and post. So we can run a command before any install or update, or after that. And we can also do specific stuff. We can run commands explicitly before the installation of Shopware and after the installation of Shopware, or pre-update and post-update. And the second thing is we can control the extension management. It installs, of course, the plugins and apps, but there's something always which maybe doesn't work. So we have already exclude extensions. So when you have a fancy extension which you don't want to let the deployment helper manage, you can exclude him. I would say this is kind of not necessary, because the extensions are installed in the right order. We took here the dependency graph of the plugins. So when a plugin bases on another plugin, we install it in the right order that the required plugin is before installed. But if there's still a problem, let me know. We just added the exclude when there's any case. And now we come to one of the coolest things, which was one-time task. We have always some kind of fixed commands. I know that from a lot of projects. They messed up something in the database. So they built a Symfony command, which they want to run once in the production environment. So what you can do here is you can define an identifier and then a script. And this script is executed once in this system. So we create a table, one-time task, and when the entry for foo is inside there, we don't run it. Otherwise, we run it and then add it there. So it's a cool way to add one-time things into your deployment. And of course, there's a lot of more. You can create MySQL dumps, where you don't need to have MySQL or MySQL dump installed in the system. So it's purely based in Go. You can configure it with the YAML file, which fields you want to be anonymized, and so on. In the next slide, there is a guide link where you can learn more about that. We have project configuration, where you can, as I said, download the system config, the theme config, and so on, manage it with the YAML file, and push it against the Shopware store. And with that, you can have a versioned array of your project configuration and can push the same thing to staging and production. And it shows already before also the difference. What we also can do is we can create a publicly accessible tunnel, because when you want to develop a payment plugin, your shop needs to be in the internet, because otherwise the webhook of kind of like PayPal cannot reach your shop. And this is perfect for this case. We can create a tunnel, and then you get a public accessible URL, and you can access your shop there. When you close Shopware-cli, it's gone. So it's easy to show someone external your local setup, or just for like payment cases. We can also start like multiple workers at once, because when you start one worker, it takes some time, but we have more CPUs, so you can start like 10 workers at once. It does like some handy features. And where I'm also like pretty proud is we have this ES building a zip file. We took that a step more higher, so we can also watch a complete administration with ES build. And this starts in 200 milliseconds. So it's pretty really fast, and people love that, of course. It has downsides. View dev mode doesn't work, but I'm not a view dev. It's enough for me. When you need the view dev mode, you can use the Shopware normal administration watcher. But for the regular PHP guide doing minimal changes in JS, it's fine, I would say. Let's come to the link tree I mentioned. In the link tree, you can find how you can install Shopware-cli. We have, again, I think, 12 different ways how you can install Shopware-cli. So, and also, I created for the SCD some guides how you can check out the things, because developers mostly are not so good at documentation, but I was like a little bit forced to do that. Yeah, and of course the development helper. There's also the development helper linked. Yeah. So I would say, let's come to the last thing. First of all, when you have questions, we have a hosting channel in the community Slack. If you have questions, please join there. There's like, you can ask everything about hosting, and we have also a dedicated Friends of Shopware Slack channel. And we see already a question from Patrick. Can I use mayonnaise to deploy Shopware? I don't think so, Patrick. You cannot use that. Has anyone else a real question to that? To Shopware-cli?
Thank you, Sona. Is there a question right up? Okay, then, there's one. Otherwise, I would have taken the chance.
Hi, thanks for the talk, and thanks for the amazing Shopware-cli. I use it a lot, and it's really great. I was wondering, with the project config synchronization, you use it mostly to pull and push from remote shops. Do you think it will be ever combined with the deployment helper, so you can actually keep it in the same state depending on versions?
Yes, so it's a really great question. Like, I personally didn't find a really good solution where to do that. So Shopware-cli works pretty great with the API, because everything is API-driven, but I could also imagine that we do that in the future with the deployment helper, because there are like a lot of highly requested things, like synchronization of rules and so on. And I think it's easier to do that right now in PHP and also get more people on board, because not everyone knows how to write Go. So that's maybe also something we want to take a look at with the development helper, what we can do there more. And the development helper is also Shopware version independent. It doesn't use anything from Shopware and works with any Shopware version.
Great, thanks.
I think there's a question right behind.
Hi, Jonas. Thank you for telling everyone that Shopware-cli is nice. I think it's nice. I'm using it a lot. And I'm asking, what do I have to do when I want to add support for Symfony bundles or Shopware bundles to be supported by the tools? Because so far it feels like only plugins that have a composer JSON are supported.
To build the assets, or?
Yeah, for example.
That's a really good question. I think I added that to support already with the bundle support. You can find it in the documentation under bundles support. It's a little bit strange YAML composer JSON change, but it should work then.
Okay, then I will try to reread that.
Let me know when it's not working.
Okay, is there another question? If so, please raise your hand. I don't see one. Okay, maybe I have a question for you. As you know, I'm working in the department which is responsible for the Shopware account and the Shopware extensions store. So, do you have a disclaimer that the Shopware CLI, for the Shopware CLI, that the store requirements can change?
Do you mean for the zip validate?
Yeah, for the validation and for the upload of the extension.
Yes, I'm just stalking the Jira tickets and rebuild the same.
I think I know that, but
we have to merge the Go.
But I haven't seen a disclaimer yet, so.
Yeah, we have to add a disclaimer, and we maybe merge also the source code, so we just use the Shopware-cli one for that.
Okay, great. Is there a question in the audience? Oh, here's one. Microphone, please. And I think that's our last question. Yeah, at the front.
So yesterday I had a great talk to Sebastian from PHP Unit, and he told me he had a crazy experience in Asia where he has a little signature session, and somebody comes in and would like to have a signature on his MacBook, and I prepared something and ask you both guys, maybe you would like to make also a signature on my MacBook. I already collected a few guys of you, like Sebastian.
Yeah, of course.
I think we can do it afterwards.
You will do later?
Yeah.
Maybe? You can do that
Sure.
later. Yeah, sure.
Okay, then I guess that's it. Thank you, Zona. And enjoy the evening.